What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about the review scores of Ghost of Tsushima. So this day was long awaited, right? We've been talking about this. We've been talking this up, basically, for the longest time. The review scores are out. So let's jump into the Metacritic. Let's jump into what people are saying, the pros and cons. I understand this title is kind of a tale of two different stories, and that honestly is a big part of this game from what it seems like people are talking about it. So the average is an 84 at the time I'm recording this. Now, I believe actually ever since I woke up today, it's been an 84. It hasn't actually moved. 86 critics, though, so that number has definitely gone up since I last saw it. 86 critics have reviewed Ghost of Tsushima, and 84. Now, like everything, and again, I think I should make this very, very clear. Number one, I'm a big Sony guy. I'm a big PlayStation guy. I'm getting this game day one. I'm ready to play it. I actually probably won't be able to play it Friday. I'll probably play it Saturday, but I'm ready to go. Number two, I've always wanted this game to be as good as humanly possible. All I want is for it to be good. I've had concerns about this game, though, from the very beginning, and we've talked about that. Number three, I don't go based off of review scores. I think that's one of the biggest things when I make these videos. A lot of people say, why do you even go on review scores? Well, I don't. Ultimately, I make the decision for myself. I honestly would recommend that you guys do the same. If you're all in on review scores, though, I totally get it. And review scores definitely have their place, right? I believe we've learned a lot about Ghost of Tsushima today because of these review scores. It's not getting that over kind of like a massive amounts of love and kind of like throwing it directly in your face like The Last of Us Part 2 got. However, there are people that genuinely love this game. I've seen a lot of people, both, I've read I've read like 20 of these reviews. I've tried to go on Twitter and look at a bunch of other people. Because again, Metacritic doesn't count every single critic that's reviewed this game. It also doesn't count if you don't give it a score, right? If a site doesn't give it a score. Lots of people really, really love it. Some people say it's in their top 10 games of all time. Some people say it's definitely one of the better open world games of all time. The thing that I've seen, okay, if I had to put it all together in literally like a wrap up of this review, is that it is the best samurai game ever created. Okay, I've seen that time and time, even in the reviews that aren't that good. There's some reviews that are in the 6s and the 7s. There's some mediocre, like it's an average game, basically, is what they're trying to get through. Even them, they say this is probably the best samurai game you've ever played. The negatives, though, is besides the people that truly are head over heels on this on Twitter, it does not seem to be one of the elite open world games. It's one of the elite looking games. I've seen that a lot too, that the graphics, that how this game comes together, how this game looks, putting you in the environment of Tsushima, of this samurai in Japan, like all that kind of stuff, it does amazingly, okay? It's really, really solid. But in terms of the gameplay, in terms of the gameplay I've seen a lot, which we'll get to in a second, but the world itself, how you do an open world, the new ideas you have to create, it's not very good. It's borrowing a lot from what other games have already done before. Now, to kind of go back to what I was saying, is remember, I predicted, I said I think this game will get somewhere in the 86 to 89 range. So I was very, very close. I also did say, though, I could see why I would get in the low 80s if there was a glaring weakness. And what did I say? I actually said, I believe if it got in the low 80s, it would be either because of the world or because of the character. I've actually seen both in terms of reviews. I've seen a lot of people saying the story, if you're going for it, if that's kind of what you are expecting and you're ready to go for like a samurai tale, it's gonna be fine, right? It's gonna be really solid. If that's not what you want and you're hoping that the game sells it to you, it doesn't do it. I've seen that kind of time and time again, that the story doesn't always kind of deliver. Again, like if you're going in for it, then you're probably gonna be fine. But if you're going in and being like, I don't know if this story is not, which I'll be, again, very transparent with you guys, that was kind of my worry. Remember, that was one of my worries I talked about like 2 weeks ago was, am I gonna relate to this character? Am I gonna feel for him? Is the story gonna be solid because they're going for a more grounded, somewhat realistic, right? It's not really based fully on real events, but you know what they're trying to do, right? Is it really gonna work? And I think the answer, I would say, and I do kind of believe them when they say this, like it may not actually work for me. That's okay. I'm not gonna hold it against the game. I'm gonna play. Again, like I've said, I cannot wait. I truly cannot wait to play this game. I'm very, very excited to play Ghost of Tsushima. But again, I've seen a lot of the world, and I've said this actually in the past too. In the gaming atmosphere that we have right now, open world games, there's only a couple that you can consider, I think, really elite games, right? Like Red Dead Redemption 2, even like Witcher 3. Witcher 3 will always be the game I look to. I think Red Dead 2 is a really good example too of like these are games that take that open world genre and really elevate it to that next step, right? Other games may just try and copy. Other games are trying to do their own things, and again, that's what I've seen a lot of Ghost of Tsushima is it makes it their own. Okay, Sucker Punch tries to make Ghost of Tsushima its own. It tries to do its own thing with it, but mainly it's borrowing a lot of ideas. And this, again, I'm not saying this is what I've experienced because I obviously haven't played it yet. This is what I've seen time and time again in these reviews is they're borrowing a lot of elements in open world games that have worked well, and they're using it. And so again, I mean, it's fine. It's just that it's not very, they're not trying to do their own thing, right? They're not going to reinvent the wheel, right? I even saw a couple reviews that said, like, if this game came out a few years ago, like 2-3 years ago, it would have been like, oh my God, this is one of the best ones out there. But instead, it's come out now. You have to look at different kind of positives, right? Again, the gameplay is really solid. The story and characters work if you kind of give yourself over to them. But overall, it's not really, again, it's not going to reinvent the wheel on you. Now, the gameplay is something I was very interested in. Remember, I did say one of my concerns with it would be the gameplay. Would the gameplay hold up? Would the gameplay be too hard on some people? Would it be, like, layered enough? And I have seen quite a bit of that. I've seen overall the gameplay is very solid. It kind of gets repetitive. I've seen that a few times before in these reviews that I've been reading. The gameplay sometimes can get repetitive, but overall, the sword fighting, all that stuff really, really works. I think, again, if I were to sum it up, which is what this video is, this game, I think, does exactly what it was going for. It set out to be, it was like an 11th century, samurai tale, okay? That's what it set out to be. I think it nailed it. I think from what we've seen so far, from the people that are able to play this game, both even, the positive reviews and the negative reviews, I think this game set out to do something, and it nailed what it set out to do. It's beautiful. The gameplay works. There is okay amount of stuff. I've seen a little bit that the world does kind of get boring, and it does kind of get... That is what I'm a little bit worried about, right? I really... An open world game, I want to experience it for a long time. If it takes a while to get in, or if you get out too fast, that's a big worry of mine, but we'll have to see, when each of us individuals, right, when we all play the game. But again, taking all those things on their own, putting them together, I think what they set out to do is, it was accomplished. I really do. Really, the sad thing is because I have seen this, I have seen people, the highest reviewed scores that this game has gotten, okay, the ones that are giving it 10s, the ones that are giving it like 9.5s, they're saying that this does elevate Sucker Punch to the level of the other elite Sony studios. I don't think that's going to be when all said and done. This is, I guess, will be a bold prediction. I don't think that'll be the general opinion when all's said and done. I think that people are going to look at this game as, like kind of what I said in the title, it's very flawed, but it's very good for what it is, right? They set out to do something, and they accomplished it, but they did, if we're being honest with ourselves. Again, I mean, this is just these reviews. When I play it, maybe I'll hate it, maybe I'll love it, I'll be like, you know what, you can kind of overlook some of the stuff. But what we've gotten right now, if we can take anything from it, if we can kind of like infer from this, is they messed up on certain things, and it's not like this, genuine masterpiece, but they succeeded in a lot of ways. To be quite honest with you, that's kind of like Infamous Second Son. If you guys have watched the channel long enough, you'll know I love Infamous. I love that franchise to death. I want a new one. I would, if they want to remaster them or put them all together, I think that would be something. We're going to talk about that in future videos. But I love Infamous, right? I love Infamous 1 and 2. Second Son is pretty messy. I do not have good memories with Second Son. I actually loved First Light, the DLC for it. I actually thought that was really, really good. But what I will say for Second Son is it was a flawed but really good game. I mean, back then, the visuals, the powers, all those kind of mechanics, I thought it worked really well. There were a lot of really good things with that game. It was just the negatives were kind of like Delson. I didn't really like him. The whole being good and bad was at that point, I think, old, right? The whole very generic, you're either good or you're bad based off of your one of two decisions, right? Those are kind of the things I didn't like, but really, it's kind of the same thing here. It's not the same reasons, right? It's maybe not the story, it's maybe not the characters, but still, 2 times in a row, I would say Sucker Punch has made an experience that probably, firstly, isn't for everybody, and secondly, is solid for what it is, but maybe, well, one, it's not really taking any giant risks. And you could say, well, the giant risk is doing the whole historical accuracy thing, right? I would say that you're probably right, and I would say, again, they actually nailed that. I would say that's probably a solid thing that they did. But overall, I'm not disappointed by the review scores. I know I put even on Twitter, like, I'm happy. I'm really getting an 84 off of all these critics, having people say the really positive things, having people say the really negative things. Look, when you have a game, now I get it. Review scores can be biased. Review scores can be kind of, the Metacritic can be doing some pretty sketchy things with them, even if you want to consider The Last of Us Part 2. But when you have in the low 80s, which I guess this is more in the mid, but when you have somewhere in the first half of those 80s, you are going to have some really positive things, and there are going to be reasons why it's an 84, because you have all these sites giving it 9, 9.5, 10. You got to have sites giving it 6s and 7s to bring it down. So clearly, there are some issues. There's definitely some issues with this game, but this is kind of where I expected it to be. I knew they were taking a chance. I knew this is not a slam dunk game, right? I've been saying that actually for the longest time. This was not a slam dunk. The Last of Us, I would have said like 4 months ago before the leaks that was a slam dunk, right? But a lot of things can happen since then. Really, this was never a slam dunk. That was guaranteed to be phenomenal. We all have very, very high hopes for this game, and I would say I'm very pleased with what we got so far. I mean, we only have 86 people. You got maybe, 20, 30, 40 more. You got probably 150 or so minds that have talked about this game. That's only that. That's only that, right? We all still have to play this game. We all still have to make the decision for ourselves. We'll see how the sales do of this game. We'll see if people actually enjoy it. Again, maybe they find the gameplay to be repetitive. Maybe there's not enough to do in the world. Maybe the story and character just doesn't get enough people. We'll see. Or maybe the exact opposite. Maybe everybody loves it. The gameplay is really, like empowering and it just feels great. Again, all just the reverse of what I just said. Going to be really interesting. Honestly, the review scores make me want to play this game more because I want to see, okay, are the problems very apparent? Because some of the problems that reviewers were saying seem like, oh yeah, you're going to definitely notice the biggest weaknesses of this game, you're going to notice them. Like, it's going to be directly in your face, right? But it's also just a really, really good game around that. So ultimately, again, we'll have to see when we all get to play it on Friday. Guys, let me know. What do you think? What do you think about the review scores? What do you think about the positives people are saying? The negatives? Let me know. As always, make sure you guys are subscribed to this YouTube channel, Podcast Now. Hit the bell icon so you guys know when these videos go up, and follow me on Twitter. Podcast Now 15 is my Twitter handle. The link for that will also be in the description below. I got loads more Ghost of Tsushima videos coming to you guys. We're going to talk about it more as this week progresses. Once I get the game, I'm going to have a lot of different kinds of videos talking about the future of Sucker Punch, a lot of different things I'm going to be talking about Ghost of Tsushima related over the next couple of weeks, okay? Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all on the next video.